welcome to the Live Healthy podcast. I'm Anne-Marie McQueen, and we're here with Ali Tariq, the founder of Fivescore Labs, the region's first homegrown longevity consumer brand established in partnership with Ivy League trained scientists. We're going to find all about living longer better. Welcome. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you, Anne-Marie, for having me on the show.
Okay, so first of all, does this mean living past 100? Does this mean that's what you're trying to do?
Great question. Look, I think, let's take a step back, I suppose. I guess when you ask people whether they would like to live to, let's say, 100 years, I think the first thing that comes to mind is this idea or notion of being old and frail and, losing your sort of cognitive abilities and bodily functions. And that with that in mind, obviously the immediate answer is no. You don't want to live to 100. But I think there are two important aspects of longevity. Lifespan's one of them, and lifespan's binary thing. So it's either you live long or you don't. But the other aspect, or vector, if you like, is health span. So ideally, you want to be able to live to that old age in control of your cognitive abilities, enjoying your daily life and going about doing the stuff that you enjoy. So, to answer your question, yes, you want to live long, but equally important, if not more important, is to live a healthy life at that age.
Yeah, so it's about living longer, but it's about living better, however long you're supposed to live. Do you believe,
exactly.
Yeah, do you believe, that's kind of a deep question, but do you believe that even you could do all of these things that we're going to talk about and still maybe your exit date has been determined?
That's a great question, because I think that gets to the heart of, I suppose, not so much the pushback, but I suppose the counter argument in the sense that, well, we're here on Earth, a lot of the stuff that we do is sort of, depending on what your beliefs are predetermined. A lot of that thinking is driven by cultural aspects and considerations. I suppose my retort to that would be, you could apply that rationale to pretty much anything in life, really. So, I suppose you could argue, what's the point of trying to get an education if your sort of fate is predetermined? I think the other aspect of that is genetic. So there is an element of how your genes are hard-coded from birth, and how that determines your life. There is scientific truth to that. But increasingly, the literature and studies indicate that your genetic coding or hardwiring represents about 10 to 20% of your outcome as an individual. And the rest, the sort of 80 to 90% is really environmental factors driven by your lifestyle decisions, everything that you do around your daily life, whether it's nutrition, exercise, supplementation, and how long you can sustain that. So a lot of that is influence, and I think what the literature and scientific studies are showing is that a lot of that it can be directly impacted by your deliberate decisions. So, I think going back to the question, I think there's an element of cultural thinking around that sort of existential question. That's something that, I think over time, people's thinking is evolving over that as well. So I think from generation to generation, I think people's thoughts around meaning of life, longevity, and all the rest of it evolves. And scientifically, I think the evidence suggests that we do have a direct impact on how we choose to age well.
I mean, it's certainly in my lifetime covering this stuff, that has been the biggest development, is that our genes are really a small part. And in a way, I think of it almost like do your best at what you're doing. So, you go to your job, you do your best, you go to school, you do your best. When it comes to being a human and the physical part of you being a human that merges into the mental, do your best at that too. Like in a way, longevity really isn't anything more than that, right? I don't know. Am
Yeah,
I?
absolutely. And I think if you were, if we were both having this conversation 100 years ago, I don't think any of us would have reasonably expected to live past the age of 50, maybe, or whatever the number is or was. So, it just goes to show you how far we've come in such a short amount of time. And really, what is the potential of pushing the envelope even further? Who knows? I mean, obviously, there are people today that are 100 years old. There are people that are much older than that. But I think the overall thinking is, how do we all maximize our ability to live past that age that we're expected to live today? So, that 50 years old 100 years ago is, I think the average has come up to 75, 80. And there's no reason why we can't push that even further.
So you were a finance guy. How did you find your way into all of this? How did this come about? And you've sort of relearned and restudied and all in a really short amount of time.
I'm never going to live down that label of the finance guy. But look, you're absolutely right. So I've worked in finance for 15 years. It's what I studied in university as well. And as you probably know, being in finance or any sort of intense career, if you like, comes with it a detrimental impact on your wellness, both physical and mental. So I fell into that sort of cliche of poor diet choices, lack of exercise, whatever cliche you have around finance guys. I was that living embodiment. And I think it was one of those things. So I thought I got to the age of, say about 38, 39, where, it just became very obvious to me that the trajectory of my life was just not going in the way that I would like for it to be going, both from a personal and sort of wellness perspective. And, the time came that I just needed to do something about it. So it was a very sort of binary decision. And bizarrely, incidentally, it was just around the time that sort of COVID hit and the world went into lockdown. So I was really at that fork in the road where it became very clear to me that I was either going to balloon into obesity or sort of intervene at that moment and really take back control. So 2020, I underwent a transformation, really, a physical transformation, a mental transformation. I lost about 16 kilos. So if you met me 3-4 years ago, you probably wouldn't have recognized me on the street. Got into the best shape of my life, and that sort of led into sort of an increased interest in the science behind what I was actually undertaking in terms of that transformation. In lockdown, we didn't have much else to do but watch Netflix and read. So I just got to reading all these fascinating books about genetics and epigenetics and genomics. And that led to me pursuing a sort of part-time certification in genomics in the US. And really that kind of spiraled into sort of this idea around, well, here it took me 40 years but I finally found something that I'm passionate about. It's something that, I practice on a daily basis myself. And incidentally, one of my best friends in life is a gentleman that I've known for 30 years. We went to high school in Saudi, and he's sort of crafted a career as a medical doctor in the US and Canada. And we got to talking, and we got another friend on board as well, who we've known for 20 years. And I suppose that's when the genesis of Fivescore Labs really came about. It percolated over the course of about a year, 18 months. There were some obvious shortfalls that I came across as a consumer of some of these products. And really, it was about going out there and fixing that for myself, and hoping in some small measure that would help other people in their journeys, if you like. So yeah.
So let's just describe your life up before, and then what changes you made, and then how those shortfalls you're talking about that you saw. So what were you like before?
So I'm going to have to cast my mind back a couple of years. Like I said, I was overweight. So, I mean, that's number one. So clearly my dietary choices were very poor. By that, I mean, I was having 3-4 meals a day, snacking all day. And the meals I would consume had no sort of consideration towards sort of nutritional value. So, living in the UAE, you have access to all sorts of cuisines from around the world. But you tend to gravitate to the common ones, don't you? So, think of pizzas and burgers every day. And coupled with the sort of lack of any sort of physical exercise, it really, over the course of a couple of years, it really weighs down on you physically and mentally. And I do remember this one time, I think it was summer of 2019. I did one of these genetic tests, the 23andMe genetic test. It came back. Obviously, you get your sort of really cool reports around your ancestry. But one aspect of that testing is the health side, and what your genes say about you in terms of how you respond to your environmental factors. And one of the key takeaways for me was I was apparently 50% more likely to develop type 2 diabetes based on my genetic profile. And that was a bit of a wake-up call. So definitely in the wrong place in terms of physical fitness, definitely in the wrong place in terms of mental and nutritional fitness. And it became very clear to me that a lot of that sort of interplay was impacting my quality of life at work. So I was typically very anxious at work. The quality of my sleep deteriorated. And it really is a vicious cycle. And, unless you sort of intervene dramatically, it's very easy to find yourself at, say, 50 years old and doing exactly the same stuff around dietary choices and lack of exercise. So when I did my sort of self-intervention, it was very clear to me that I needed to hit all these hallmarks one by one. So get yourself in order in terms of physical fitness. So these are things anyone can do, right? So it's not rocket science. Get a personal trainer, lose the excess weight, build muscle mass, and fix your nutrition. So I followed a very strict regimen of broccoli and chicken and healthy fats and healthy carbs. I'm a big proponent of intermittent fasting. So I don't have breakfast, for example, most days. Some days I don't even have lunch. So typically, if you have one meal a day, it's very difficult to overeat that meal. You can, but if you live a sort of normal life, it's very difficult to do so. So you get those two. And to be fair, if you get your personal fitness in order, if you get your nutrition in order, you're about 80% there. So the good news is, it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. You don't need to be an ultra endurance athlete to get the benefits of longevity from physical exercise. But the trick really is consistency and over the long term. And once you get those two bits of your house in order, the last point is around sort of exogenous molecules and the supplementation that you can, take to sort of support your protocols. So again, 3 to 4 years ago, I didn't supplement on anything. And very quickly, I had to educate myself in terms of what compounds work, what is evidence informed, what you can get from your daily food intake, what you need to supplement with. So I think if you look at my stack now, you'd be very surprised how many sort of supplements an individual can take in one day. But a lot of that needs to come alongside that first bit. So, I'm a big proponent of, if you don't get your fitness or nutrition in check, don't come talk to me about supplements. It's just not worth the time and effort. You would probably get some of the benefits, but I mean, to get that transformational impact on your life and longevity, you need to have a holistic approach. And I like to think that that's what I do. I think if you speak to my colleagues at work, I think they'll be the first ones to tell you that I'm a changed man in terms of my ability to sort of keep anxiety in check and sort of be disciplined about what to order on Deliveroo every day, for example. And I think, it was very clear to me that it's actually quite easy to live a healthy lifestyle. We're fortunate to live in a city where you have all these options on your phone in terms of healthy food that you can order. We live in a city where personal trainers, there are plenty in Dubai. At the drop of a hat, you can get into whatever sport that you like to. But unfortunately, most people don't. And I think it's a bit of a mental block. And I hope in some small measure that what I do every day inspires everyone around me. I'm pleased to say that my colleagues and juniors have lost weight over the years because of me. So I'm doing my bit as well in terms of preaching what I practice.
Get into the specifics and the stack and all that, but I'm just curious because you also seem to have found a purpose in all of this. And I wonder how much that purpose and passion you feel, what piece that is of longevity.
It's a good quote. I mean, that's a great question. So you're absolutely right. So I do generally feel like I've found the sort of purpose and calling in life, and it's taken me 40 plus years to find that. I think a lot of that thinking is personal to the individual. I think for me, being in the career that I'm in, there was a certain part of me that needed something else to, I suppose, not only just, make sure that I'm in check from a health perspective, but also something that I was generally interested in, that allowed me to read and learn about other things outside of work. And if I cast my mind back, I think, even in high school, biology was probably my favorite subject in high school. So, it's taken me 40 years to make a full circle. So I got there in the end. Yes, you're absolutely right. So I think there is an element of personal calling. I think that's personal to me. I don't think you need that as part of your own longevity ambitions, if you like. I think you can approach it in a very structured way that you don't need to have that sort of meaning in life to follow. I think, and I think it's accessible to everyone, really.
Okay, so let's talk about Fivescore Labs and, this concept of when you get these fundamentals in place, then going on to the right supplementation, evidence-informed longevity molecules. What are we talking about here? That sounds like mumbo jumbo to a lot of people. So what are we getting into?
Excellent question. So I think, take a step back. So you're absolutely right. So I think step one is to get your physical fitness in check. Step two is to get your nutritional in check. And then step three, really, well, to be fair, before we get to the molecules part, I would also add sleep quality in check. And then you can sort of consider or approach supplementation. And that's really taking exogenous compounds as part of your stack daily. And that includes stuff like omega-3 oils, for example. And that's a big part of what I take every day. And there's a whole lot of literature in terms of how that's important for your brain health and the quality of sort of neuroprotective elements as you age. So omega-3 oils, you need to have plenty of that. You don't, and unfortunately, you just don't get enough from your diet unless you eat a lot of salmon, which I don't. Vitamin D is really important and critical for your aging process. And a lot of the traditional supplements, they're all very important and they're all part of my stack. Over and above that, I think there's another class of compounds that have not yet sort of hit the sort of zeitgeist or mainstream thinking in terms of their ability to add value to your longevity regimen. And that's, I think, the genesis of where Fivescore Labs started. And if you take a step back, there are a couple of elements in terms of aging that's important to make sure that you maintain a healthy balance of, and maintaining, for example, healthy levels of NAD plus in your body is an important element of aging. NAD plus is a coenzyme. It's one of the most abundant molecules in your body. Without it, we'd be dead in 30 seconds. It's that critical. Every cell in your body has NAD. But unfortunately, as you get older, NAD declines, so much so that by 50 years, you have about half the levels of what you would have had if you were 20. And NAD is important for cell metabolism. It makes sure that DNA repair mechanisms are functioning as they should be. And, there are natural ways to support NAD. And that's where the balanced lifestyle comes into play. So, for example, exercise increases your NAD levels. Intermittent fasting increases your NAD levels because your body is put under a mild degree of stress. And the reaction is to increase levels and to improve your metabolism effectively. That said, there is an inevitable decline, and the other way of maintaining healthy NAD levels is through supplementation. So I think what's become popular globally is, I don't know if you come across these NAD drips that you can order to your house and have them stuck into your arm and have a dose of NAD effectively for about an hour. I personally haven't done that. I am not sure what is the efficacy of those strips. I think it's safe to assume you probably get a boost for an hour. But then the question remains, what happens over the long term, and how effective really is it in terms of maintaining healthy NAD? So I think the literature suggests that the best way of maintaining healthy NAD is through healthy lifestyle and through supplementing with precursors. And one of those precursors is, things that you can get. Vitamin B3, for example, is a known NAD booster. And there are variants of vitamin B3, including niacin, nicotinamide riboside, and nicotinamide mononucleotide for the aficionados, which is the molecule that we're supplying at the minute. It's what I take personally every day. It's been studied to improve NAD levels in supplementation form over the course of a couple of years. And added to that is another compound that we're offering at the moment. Is called resveratrol. Again, it's something that's been, I suppose, in the mainstream zeitgeist for many years, commonly found in the skin of grapes. If you're a wine drinker, it's in red wine. But unfortunately, the levels of the compound in both grapes and wine is maybe too small to make a long-term impact. So I think you'd need to drink about, I don't know what the number is, like 100 bottles of red wine a day to get a meaningful amount of resveratrol, which by no means anyone should be doing. So you can find that in supplement form. It's something that we've partnered with our labs in the UK to manufacture as well. The key thing about resveratrol is it's not water soluble. So you typically mix it either with a meal, or I like to take it with some olive oil to allow it to sort of increase the bioavailability. So these are sort of two compounds that we've sort of rolled out. By no means is that the end of it. I suppose you have to start somewhere. And I think the intention really is to augment that product offering, but also over time become a sort of reference point for healthy aging in general. So what I'd love the company to be, if we spoke 5 years from now, I'd love it to be offering sort of personal training services, healthy meal plans, a stack of healthy evidence-informed supplementation, and tools to allow you to measure your biological age. There are DNA tests that you can do today. You may be 40 years old chronologically. You look a lot younger, by the way. And your biological age may be a lot younger depending on your lifestyle. So these are tests that you can do today. They are unfortunately unavailable in the UAE just yet, but we're hopefully working on a solution for that. So really, the key, and I think the overarching theme here is a holistic approach. We've just started last month. I think if you look at our business today, it's only 2 products, but we're hoping to quickly add to that over the next 6 months to a year.
Well, this is all born out of you getting your health together, then you wanting to take it to the next level, and then becoming frustrated with the supplements that are available in the UAE. Everyone's getting all these shipments from iHerb, but even there, even iHerb, you're not guaranteed by any means. And I think what happens with people is they hear, oh, NAD, okay, I'll order NAD and take it. And it's just so much more complicated. And then what are your frustrations with longevity supplements that are available here? I mean, anyone who's tried will know, but what's going on, and what do people need to be careful of, do you think?
Yeah, no, excellent question. So you're absolutely right. So one of my biggest frustrations, and I was shocked to find out, specifically on, let's take NMN as an example. There was a study done in 2021 in the US, where shockingly, about 65% of the NMN available on Amazon contained less than 1% of the active ingredient. Which to me is mad. It's just, you wonder what you take every day when you see numbers like that. So much so, I think they've taken NMN off Amazon in the US now. So if you're based in the US, you can't order Amazon because it was that big of a problem. So problem number one is the quality of the supplement, and what is it that you're actually taking when you take a pill. And that was a big part of our mission. So I must have spoken and met with 5 labs in the UK until I settled on one. That was a family-run business. They've been doing it for 50 years. A great company. Actually went on site, took me a tour of, because I'm just one of those guys where I was like, okay, actually show me how you make the pill. I mean, I just want to see how it's actually done. And they were kind enough to take me a tour of the facility, which was great. And I took a lot of comfort from that. But we don't stop there. So every batch that we make, we send it to an accredited lab in Burbank, California, and they test it for purity as well. And the third, I would say, a filter is in Dubai itself. So every supplement that gets imported to Dubai needs to go through testing with Dubai municipality. So by the time that you take it in Dubai, it's gone through that sort of degree of analysis. So we've done that as well. So by the time that it's come to your consumption, that it's gone through first a level of certification in the UK. So first of all, you need to look out for products that are made in GMP certified facilities. GMP stands for Good Manufacturing Practice. I would say the second level should always be testing at an independent lab. Ideally, that's in a different country. It just allows for that sort of diversity of testing. And each batch ideally should be tested independently and displayed by the manufacturer or the brand. And the third level is, that I would say that sort of local municipality testing, if you like, and for us that's Dubai. So those are the three frustrations or pain points I would say that I observed when I was trying to buy these supplements online. And I'm not ashamed to say part of what set up Fivescore Labs for me was selfish. I just wanted to sort of source my own supplements. I succeeded in that. So, a big part of this is now sharing that with, whoever's interested, really.
So a couple of other things about supplements. The excipients, the extra ingredients in supplements are something that you have to be aware of. And I think people don't like to pay very much, but you do get what you pay for. So can you address those?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So again, going back to the issue with NMN and Amazon, so 65% of NMN supplements on Amazon contain less than 1% of NMN. So, the natural question is, well, what's in that pill that I'm taking? And unfortunately, first of all, who knows? But more often than not, it's stuff like, flour. Sometimes it's as scandalous as that. You'll be just ingesting white flour thinking that it's a supplement. Other times it's a form of that same supplement. So like I said, NMN is a derivative of vitamin B3, and the supplement company will be advertising it as NMN, but it turns out that they're actually selling a much cheaper version, vitamin B3. So you're paying for an expensive supplement, but effectively you're better off just taking the vitamin B3 in your local sort of Whole Foods market for a much cheaper price. So those are the things. Resveratrol equally has a problem in the sense that if you go to your local supplement store, there's plenty of resveratrol on the shelf. But I think what you will notice more often than not is it tends to be brown in color. And that's because they mix the resveratrol with loads of other stuff. So you'll get a lot of excipients like cinnamon or black pepper or anything like that to, presumably boost the effects of resveratrol, which, in of itself is a claim that's not backed by science. So ideally what you want resveratrol to be is a white powder that's pure, ideally 98% pure. And that's typically very rare to find in your local store. So more often than not, you're left with, finding the right company online, really. So yeah, for those two supplements, those are, I would say, the two pain points that you need to look out for.
Okay, so what do you guys want to do next? You want to do everything, but what's your next step?
So funny you should ask. So I'm actually in discussions with the lab in the US on rolling out our next line of products. So the challenge with supplements is, I love my supplements and I have a stack. It can be intimidating for people to consume because the form factor is not really readily accessible. There's maybe a little bit of hesitation to taking supplements in the first place. So what we're working on is a different form factor. So we're exploring other products. So for example, supplements in sort of super greens format that you can mix into your drinks or your smoothies. You can offer the same supplements in other more accessible form factors, if you like. So don't want to say too much just yet, but we're working on some other exciting products. And the irony is, a lot of this stuff I take anyway. So, what I'm actually doing is, I suppose, finding a source that gives me, as a consumer, the comfort in taking these supplements, knowing that they're of high quality and evidence informed, and hoping to share that with friends and family.
Well, they always say, like, if you can't find something, and that's a good place to start a business, is to create the thing you can't find. Certainly this region needs greens you can trust. I have had this long, everyone at home is toting the A1C, all my friends, when I was at home in the summer, that's the trendy sort of greens solution in the West. So there's a lot of people importing this stuff. So where can people find you and engage and learn more about your stack and how to stack? I love that lingo.
Yeah, I know. So it's funny you should bring that up, because I try to stay away from that lingo. So I don't use words like biohacking. There is a certain, I suppose, I wouldn't say stigma, but there's a certain association or a type of person that you associate with biohacking. And I think we need to move away from that, because there's no reason why everyone shouldn't be doing. I mean, it's like you said earlier, if you want to study, make sure you study well. If you want to do something, make sure you do it well. If you want to age, I think you should be aging well, really. I mean, everyone's free to age how they wish, but I think you should be doing well. So I think words like stack and biohacking almost precludes certain people, and almost invites that sort of labeling, because the immediate reaction is, well, I'm not a biohacker, so I'm not interested. And I'm hoping that over time that people move away from that. Okay. And just sort of incorporate super greens and supplements, and a healthy lifestyle as part of the everyday process.
Well, everyone's confused about it, that's for sure. Like I'm in the field and I talk about this stuff all the time, and I'm confused. So you're doing good work. So Fivescore Labs.
Yeah, so we have an Instagram page, so it's Fivescore Labs, an Insta. We have a website, fivescore.com, for everyone outside of the region, fivescore.ae for in the region. Like I said, we launched fairly recently, July this year. We have a good number of customers in the UK who order from our site. We have a handful of customers in the UAE and in Saudi as well. So that was interesting. So we're still small. We're still very sort of tightly run. We're hoping to sort of grow humbly over the next year or so. But you raise a good point. Part of this is educational. So I think in time, we're hoping to share more information in terms of, what I do, for example, in terms of exercise and supplementation, and sharing that protocol with the wider world. Hopefully, even if I help one individual live to a healthy old age, it would have been worth it. And if nothing else, I have a lifetime supply of all the supplementation that I need.
Well, I mean, the due diligence that you describe is inspiring. So, and it's just sort of that lack of transparency with the other products in the market. So that's great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.